morning, everyone. Good morning. Good morning. We'll get started in just a second, but appreciate you all for joining. All right. I think we pretty much have everybody who's probably going to join. And for those who might join a little bit later, you're more than welcome to. My name is Philip Graves, and I'll be your host on your day. And I thank everybody for joining our August monthly webinar. As always, with me, we have Les Fletcher and the E-Construction team of LADOTD. If any of you guys want to say a few words, you're more than welcome to. So I'll kind of open it up to my E-Construction team, who we all have out there. We have Les, I know for sure is on. Probably Kevin Barrier, not able to see right now, but appreciate you guys for joining.
Good morning, everybody.
Sister. All right. Also, we have moderating. We have Casey Leah, who's going to be inside the chat throughout this process. If you guys have any questions or anything that you would like to ask related to headlight or even e-construction, feel free to drop it in the chat, and Casey will be able to assist. Casey, do you want to say a few words before we get started?
Yeah, I've been unable to attend the last few sessions, so I'm happy to be back here and see everyone's faces, and I'll be in the chat like Phil said, so let me know if anything comes up. As
you guys can probably see, she's doing a little bragging with her background. As you can see, she has nice, cool weather compared to us who are in Louisiana burning up. So Casey is coming from you guys on the East Coast. She's in Boston. So thank you, Casey, for rubbing that in. I'm sure the guys wanted to see that background.
It's actually raining here today, so it's not like it's sunny and cool, but it's a lot cooler than what you have. So I will take that.
Rain would be perfect right now.
Yeah. Yes. Sorry to rub it in, Les. Sorry to rub it in.
Awesome. So as you guys know, we pretty much stick with our normal routine that we have for the monthly webinar. We like for you guys to, to open up the monthly webinar just with kind of a roundtable Q&A session. If you guys have anything that you want to bring to the table, this is where you bring it. We like to let you guys kind of walk into the chat room with anything that's pressing on your chest. So that can be from field book, that can be from materials, that can be from sample plan, that could be from any of Headlights products, but that can also be anything in correlation or relation to e-construction that you can kind of just drop on us, all right? We let you guys ask those. You can ask it out loud, you can ask it in the chat, and we'll try our best to make sure that we give you an answer. And before we go into the next segment, just to kind of let you guys know, we do have an awesome segment as far as our demonstrations portion goes. We have Kevin Barbier, who's going to demonstrate to you guys how to fill out one of the most commonly used forms, which is the Asphalt Roadway report. He's going to show you guys how to fill it out from top to bottom. And then we also have another piece where we're going to dive into where we're going to show you guys exactly how to use the new observation type that's out there. I believe that is the start-stop time. Am I correct on that, Les?
That's correct. It kind of came up, and we just recently did some training over in District 62, and a couple of inspectors over there were asking about it, and we said, let's turn it back on, and Headlight was able to do that for us. So we'll kind of go over a couple of examples of what you can actually do with it and how to use it.
Awesome. Appreciate that, Les. So without further ado, if you guys had any burning questions or anything that was stuck in your head or anything over the course of the last 4 weeks that made you almost want to throw your iPad somewhere or smash it or something like that, bring that to the table right now so that way we can kind of dive into that and kind of give you an update, whether it's something that we're currently working on or if it's something that we need to put on our radar. So anybody have any questions? Uh-oh, don't get quiet on me today. It's a good day. Let's see who we got out there. We'll start picking on people in a little bit.
I got one somebody brought to my attention.
Go ahead.
On the Asphalt Roadway form, on the paper one, they had one that said lot finished, yes or no.
Yes.
Somebody here in the lab asked me, is there a way we could put that back on the form so they know when the lot is closed, so they know when they have to discard the bricks and break it down for GMM once the lot is closed?
So it's a question of, is the lot closed, and we just have it as a yes or no?
Yeah, that's on the old form. They have a one that says lot finished and it says yes or no. And it's like check boxes. Okay. And there's none on the actual form in Headlight. So that's the way they know they got to break down the roadway code for GML. And they were wondering if there's a way that we could put it on the form so they know when it's closed so they can break down the brick to run the GMM.
Gotcha. I guess another question I would have on that, with this use case that you just presented, is there any particular reason, does not having that information, does it affect the workflow in a major way?
It would affect the lab from running the GMM because as soon as the lot's closed, they're supposed to break down a core and run a GMM. I mean, the other thing, they could put it in the comments, I guess, but I'm just going by the old form, and that's how it was on the form. So they asked me to bring it up. So I bringing it to your attention.
Okay. And the GMM, that's what you said? Am I
Yeah,
right?
Rice gravity.
Okay.
The theoretical Rice gravity.
Gotcha. I'll go ahead and put that down, and that's something that we can probably dive into to figure out, how we go about that in a actual workflow for making sure that the information is transferred over to the lab. Okay. Appreciate it.
I want to say, Philip, Kevin already brought it up, but until we get that done, I think the right thing to do is to add that into remarks. So please tell your inspectors that when they have completed a lot, that they need to put in the remarks field that the lot's completed. That way, at least the lab tech has something to go off of to know they have to do what they have to do.
Gotcha. And I'm looking, Khalil dropped in the chat, please provide a copy of completed asphalt roadway report when Kevin is finished going through it. Okay. Gotcha. Will do. Thank you, Khalil. Any other questions out there? Amber, have you broken anything for me lately?
No, sir.
She has broke something. So one thing we're doing, not really, Amber, you didn't really break anything, but Amber actually, some of her contractors she's working with were signing up they wanted a portal access. And so we found some issues with the request form for that. It was kind of laid out more like a LADOTD person instead of a contractor. So Philip has got a ticket in on that, and he's working through that process. So be looking here in the next, week or so. Hopefully we'll have that kind of ironed out. When your contractors start asking for read-only access, we'll have a good process in place for that. We were able to get her contractor signed up yesterday, or this week, but anyway, something to be aware of. If you have a contractor request and you're looking at that form, it doesn't flow very well right now. Something to keep in mind.
Thank you. I'm glad that you brought that up, Les. If you guys have any contractors who is requesting access, we do have portal access, which doesn't allow them to disturb anything that you guys have going on a daily basis. But it does give them a lens into the completed daily work reports that they can view themselves. So if they want access, they can have access. It's going to be on that same link that we currently have all of the new user requests, project import request forms, and a contractor can go on there and we will be able to give them a view inside of the completed daily work reports that you guys put out there. All right. So feel free to reach out at any time if you want to give them access or we request access. Let me see who else we got. Somebody up north. Josh, how's everything going, Josh? Any new discoveries? Anything out there?
It's going pretty good. No real issues. We've got everything kind of lined out, most part on the headlight. So
Yeah,
get some good practice in using some of the SketchUp stuff that I'll talk about a while back on the photos, and using the ruler and drawing it out and keeping a record that way.
awesome. Appreciate that. Hey, Brandon Yusuf, if you don't have any questions, man, I'm gonna have to turn it over to you and let you take over the monthly webinar. It's quiet on here. All right. Any other questions? Anybody have anything else that they've worked on as of recent that might need some attention, or they've noticed something that we need to probably fix on in regards to sample plan materials or field book? Nobody? All
Bill,
right.
I can throw out a homework assignment if some people want to help out. So
Uh-oh.
something
Homework.
I was actually just kind of thinking through it, but as we are beginning to transition, away from site manager, our daily work reports are going to change a little bit, right? The workflow that's required now is tied to exactly what site manager needs. And so we'll be reworking that pretty soon and like coming up with a process and a workflow for headlight only. And so I guess the homework would be, if you're willing and you want to have some input in it, if you would send the construction group kind of a just a list or a write-up of how you think that work report should be, like what should be added or what would be some great time-saving features that might help you out on your work report. Just kind of, you have to put yourself in a place where you imagine there is no site manager, right? And there's no longer a sync, and send over some suggestions, like what would be really good for you. And that we can maybe try to work some of that in as we work through this new process. So you didn't show up today thinking you were going to get homework, did you? But that's all right.
Consider it your work Christmas list, right? Put it out there. Let's see what we can do to kind of capture some of those and include those into some of this process that we have going forward. This is the perfect time. Not too often you're able to be in a position where you can influence the direction that a company goes in the future. But this is the perfect time where you can kind of include some of those things that I'm pretty sure you're like, why they didn't think of this? Why did they didn't include this into the process? Drop those on us. And I think we do a very good job of hearing those out and trying to include those in your workflow. So pitch them at us so that way we can make sure that we include those. All right. So as we move on to our next segment, which is our demonstration portion of the monthly webinar, I'm pretty sure that you guys are a little bit tired of hearing from me and Les, always giving you demonstrations. So we got a new voice on today, and I think he's going to go over some things that you guys really want to kind of listen up to and adhere to, because this is one of the most commonly used forms in Louisiana. So without further ado, I want to open up the floor for the material specialist. He's been with LEDOTD for longer than 25 years, I believe, if I'm correct on that. And he's been in the materials lab. So without further ado, Kevin Barbier, I'm gonna turn it over to you, man.
All right, how y'all doing today? We're gonna go over how to fill out a roadway report. I will start with, before you cut the cores, you should make sure that the asphalt plant has put all the information in that they need to put in, because if not, you won't get the your GMM, your mix design or anything like that. You won't get if they haven't created the lots and everything. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna start share my screen and we're gonna go over it. So y'all can see my screen.
Yep, we can see it on our side, Kevin. You're good to go.
Okay, so I'm going to choose one that we've done a while back and they just didn't put it in Site Manager. So I'm going to go ahead and put it in Site Manager. So basically, we go to create sample, and then we're going to search for the project number. Then we're going to choose it. So for the sample name, I usually like to put the lot number. In this case, they named it sublot H. And then we're going to choose the material. And then this is going to be the concrete plant. I mean, the asphalt plant, I'm sorry. This is going to be your tonnage. And then this is going to be your mix number. And this is why I say it's very important that the asphalt plant the mix is coming from fills out everything they need, because if not, this will not show up when you're going to fill out your sample. Then you choose your destination lab. And then you can choose your test. Your test is going to be roadway cores. And usually they have 2. And then what we're going to do is then we're going to hit save. Then once it's saved, then we're going to go to create form. And in here, we're going to choose the type of form. It's going to be the asphalt roadway report. Then you can name it whatever you want. If you want to name it the lot number. And usually once we get to the form, we want to make sure we fill out everything possible so we can transfer it back to LePave so the people in the lab can enter their results. So here you're going to choose your measurements. It's going to be English or metric. Then you should have your lot number. And then most of the stuff will come over. If the plant does what it's supposed to do, most of the stuff will come over. And then you're just filling out whatever that basically didn't come over. And you're doing your start and your end date. And then you're selecting your GMN. Again, if the plant put in what they're supposed to put, the GMN will show up. If they haven't, then the GMN won't show up. And then this is your station numbers. Then you see your location. And this is going to be your mixed design use. And then if you had a previous tons, your previous tons should come over. And this is the sublot tons. This will be your square yards. And then your theoretical yield. They didn't do it on this one. And then this is your random numbers. So where you're supposed to take your asphalt cores, your pay item. And then this would be your cores. So whatever you label your cores, in this case, they labeled it. And then your mixed use. And then the date that you took the core. And then this is the station number. Then the thickness of the core. And then this here is once the lab does their part, it automatically fill this in. So that was all, this would be all you put as far as you in the field. And then you'd come in and you would You would do your second core, and the same thing with the mixed use, the same thing with the date. And the same thing with the station. And then if you have 3 or 4, most of the time you're only taking 2. And then down here at the bottom is your chain of custody. So that's whoever's bringing the bricks to the cores to the lab. Usually we'll put their name. So, and then the second one would be whoever basically received it at the lab. So in this case, we'll just put and then your density and all will be put in after. And then the DOTD certified roadway inspector, that would be whoever's the certified person out in the field would put their name and their date here. And then whoever ran the test would put their name here and the date here that it was ran. And then you would hit save. And if you need to add an image of a core, if a core was damaged or something, you need to add an image, you could add an image of the core that you took out in the field. If there's any issues or you just want to take a picture of a core, you could add an image and then you hit save. And that's it. That's pretty much how you fill it out. And then, like I said, you just got to make sure that you fill out everything that you possibly can, because if not, it will not come over to LePave so the lab can put their information in. And then you can close it out. And then it should be in there. And then within 15 minutes, it should show up in LePave for the lab to do whatever they got to do, put their results in. And that's pretty much how you fill out a roadway report.
Hey, Kevin, can you open the form back up?
Yes.
I want to mention a couple things. We got Kevin, you might have to answer this. We actually have a question in the chat. It says, do you take the construction personnel numbers for the thickness? Our lab has found that measurements can be off quite a bit. So I guess they're asking, do you check who is doing it? Is that what you're asking, Travis? Like, who is the personnel number of the person who measured it?
So the person out in the field usually takes the measurement, and then they cut it out in the field. So you usually take the measurement, I think it's before they cut it out in the field.
We'll see if maybe Travis can scroll up just a little bit. So one of the biggest things, and one of the reasons we wanted to talk about the asphalt report today is when it's not completely filled out, the information does not transfer through LePave to LIMS. And so it's something you want to be very careful about, especially the sublot number. And so what usually happens, and Kevin can attest to this, is if the certified inspector starts filling out the roadway report before the plant personnel puts their information into LePave, then that sublot number is not going to be available.
Yeah, the lot number, sublot, and the GMM will not be available. And then so basically when the lab goes to run their test, they can't run their test because they need the GMM to run their gravity to get to the density. So then you can't get no densities if you don't have a GMM, and that has to come from the asphalt plant.
So I guess what we want to bring up here is like, what do you do about that, right? So the inspectors want to start doing their roadway report immediately. So what we're really asking is that you give it some time for the plant inspector or the plant person to put their stuff in, the information they need, or you insist that they do it as soon as they start shipping mix. And that's really the right answer, is because they really should be putting that information in as soon as they run the test, as soon as they're shipping mix. And so that is what, get on the phone with them and insist that they do that part. Tell them you can't do your part and pay them until they do their part. And usually that helps. But really, that's the main thing. But, sometimes that takes a little time for them to get their information in, for everything to sync over. So, if you have to wait a little while to start that roadway, that is better than filling out the roadway and it not syncing. So that's kind of the main thing I want to bring up there. And then also, another feature that Headlight put in for us down under location is that geolocation. So I just want to make sure everybody's aware when you are working on the iPad in the field, when you tap that on the iPad, it grabs the location from where you're standing. And so the thought process behind this is that after the project is over and the station stakes have been mowed over by maintenance or taken up by the contractor, right? And so you can't find that station anymore. And sometimes the main material lab has to go back out to that project maybe 2 years later and run a test. Usually they run a friction rating, I think, a couple years after the project's over. And so if they have some geolocations that are tied to station numbers, it really helps them out and find exactly where that lot or sublot was placed. And so it's a good practice, at least on every sublot, to grab a couple geolocations. Maybe grab the beginning station and the end station of a sublot. Or even a whole lot would be fantastic, but I know sometimes it's so busy the inspector really doesn't have time to do all that. But that's what it's there for, and that data will really help out after the project's over. So just a couple little things there. The asphalt roadway, it's been a really good form. We understand that there have been sinking issues, and that's a problem. So until we get into one system, it's always going to be there. So you have to weigh, right, the convenience over the complexity there, and kind of go with which way you want to do it. So you're taking a chance that something's not going to go over if all the information is not filled out correctly. So,
and if you need more, you can add more rows right here. If you need more locations, if you want to add more, and if your previous tonnage don't come over, just send a ticket to Headlight, because that's one issue that we've been having is the tonnage ain't been coming over. So send a ticket if your tonnage don't come over. That way they can correct the problem, and then your tonnage will start coming over.
Les, I had a question about it. You said you could save it, right? Is there any way to save it as a draft? So as you mentioned, it's be helpful for them to pick the beginning ending stations. So maybe if the information is not there, the inspector can still grab the geolocation right when it switches and then fill in the information later. Is that possible?
Yeah, it will save, and we'll save it as a draft. So when you open it back up, you can still edit the form. So that is possible now, yes.
And you can put in the sublot later when they get the stuff into LePave.
Right, you can. It's just, it tends to be a little better if you can wait until that sublot is in there. But yes, you're correct. It's supposed to sync even if you come back in and edit the form later. So what happens is, Headlight has their background data and LePave is tied to that. And so LePave is constantly looking at all of the forms that are filled out in Headlight, asphalt, roadway, and concrete, and also soil moisture density. And so if LePave sees a change, any change, so if you update the sublot, if you put a period in the remarks, LePave sees that change and tries to resync the form. And so, yes, that's the way it's supposed to work. We have been having a little trouble with that lately. We've been tracking down an issue. It's been kind of difficult to find, just to be honest with you, but we do have some developers working on it. But that is the way it is supposed to work. LePave is constantly looking for updates.
Okay,
Thanks for bringing that up, Josh. I appreciate that.
I was just thinking about it because that would be, it's much easier to tell them one thing, get them do it right then there than have them remember, things go so fast. It's really hard to get back. And so, all right, thank you.
Yep. So going back to Travis's question, it looks like the measurement issue is that when an inspector measures the core in the field and types that number in, and they remeasure it in the lab for accuracy. And so I guess what you would do in that situation, Kevin, you probably know more about this in the lab than I do, but I guess what would have to happen is if it is measured in the lab and that value is found to be incorrect, I'd probably just communicate with that inspector. They need to go in and update the form to the right thickness. And to be completely honest with you, it's been a few years since I've been in the field. We were not measuring cores at the time, but I have not seen one bit of training on how you're supposed to measure a core. So it probably would be good if somebody from the asphalt group would put out, a good, or there's probably a procedure. Maybe we don't know where it's at, but if we get a good procedure on how to measure that, that would probably help.
Yeah, because the cores are measured out in the field and then cut. That's what's in the contract as of right now. They cut it out in the field and it comes to the lab.
So let me make sure I got that right in my head. So the contractor cuts the core, extracts the core, and then the inspector measures the core. Is that what we're doing now?
Pretty much, yeah. They basically, when they cut the core, if both parties agree on the core, then they basically measure it and then they're supposed to cut it.
Okay.
And then I guess you could take a measurement after, but
So-
I'm not sure which measurement they take. Is it before or after? Somebody in the field may be able to answer that better than me.
Okay, so I might be misunderstanding then. So what you're saying is when they pull the raw core out of the asphalt, they measure the total thickness and then they trim the core down and measure it again. Is that what you're saying?
I think that's how it works. Somebody out in the field can tell me better. I'm not sure how they measure it out in the field. I don't know if it's done before the cut or after the cut. Do you know, Kevin?
I'm not exactly sure. I mean, I know it was changed. Look, you and I worked in the O2 20 years ago. You know, beforehand, they had it with the lab's responsibility, checking the thicknesses, but they're trying to put it back on the project engineers now. So that's why we measure it out in the field. But I'm pretty sure that I want to say that it's measured before the cut. So that way we are keeping control of the thickness of the lift in the field and not relying on the lab to tell us, hey, this mix is over thick or under thick.
So I noticed Brandon responded in the chat saying that the contractor trims the core and then the inspector takes the measurement of it.
That's after.
Yep.
Yeah, 'cause I believe there's a minimum acceptance based on your lift, and I think it's worked out in one of the sections. I think like 2 inches, it's like 1 3/8 or something, and I get exactly what. There's a minimum it has somewhere. I have to look it up and get exactly the number, but that's usually what we go by. I think it's in the QAM. They mention it.
I think it's written in all contracts now that after they cut the core, they're supposed to trim it right there on the side of the road on a job site.
I'm pretty sure that's right.
It is. As a matter of fact, I spoke with my guys not too long about this, and they do have a saw now out in the project, at a project site.
Awesome. Any more questions about the asphalt roadway report?
I just want to say something about the report, Les. As far as like with the geo coordinates, I highly recommend everybody use that, because I know when I worked with Kevin way back when, that the lab just goes out and takes independent assurance samples. And in my experience, a lot of times those cores, the original cores where we have to drill the independent assurance, it's difficult to find them sometimes where they drill them.
So for IA, Kevin, asphalt cores are no longer taken because we do it CMAC. So the lab gets credited from a private company, so they consider that our IA. So there's no more requirements for IA for asphalt.
Oh, well, and there you go. Look how much it's changed since I worked in the lab.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys. Appreciate all of the information in regards to the asphalt roadway form. I think that was a good discussion around the trimming aspect of it and finding that out. These are the details that we want to pull out in some of these discussions. So we like to have these where we get more details as far as the process. So that way we can have that knowledge transfer across the board. So thank you for that. And Kevin, I really, really appreciate you going through that demonstration, especially because it's from a lab point of view, as well as you do have that knowledge from field as well. So thank you guys for that information. So now we move on to another part, the other part of our demonstration segment on today, which actually started off just from a feedback discussion that we had with some of the units in District 62, where we were talking about knowing exactly those times and ranges when it comes down to, concrete trucks and stuff like that and other uses And previously, when we first started off, we had the start-stop observation out there, but a lot of people didn't know how to use it, where to use it. I think it was a lot to take in at that time, but now we've brought it back. And Les is going to actually go over this observation and some of the workflows that you can use with this observation. So I think this will be very helpful, and you guys will see a use for it and start to use it a little bit more now that you see it on your project. So without further ado, I'll go ahead and turn it over to you, Les, so you can kind of dive into that.
Thanks, Philip. And I want to bring up something. Josh actually just sent me a message, and it's actually important. He pulled up the QA manual, and it says that you're supposed to measure prior to the trim. So I guess that I actually wrote a note so that I could go in and dive into this after we get off the webinar, and I want to make sure we're putting out the right information. And that just kind of leads, and thanks, Josh, I appreciate you sending that over. And I agree, we should measure before and after. I think is the right answer there. Maybe even in the remarks, put the measurement before and after, but we need to get you a good idea of which measurement you're supposed to put in the thickness box. So we'll work on that. But this kind of brings up another thing. This is an e-construction webinar. Feel free to just bring your regular construction questions. Like there's so much knowledge from your peers on here, and that's probably one of the things that's missing at LADOTD is we don't talk enough with people from around the state and try to get on the same page everywhere. And so this is a good forum for that. The Q&A, you know, I might not be able to answer all your questions, but I bet somebody on the call can. So feel free to just bring regular road construction questions, or even lab questions. So how, you know, the O2 lab handles things compared to how the 62 lab handle things. There are experts in all fields here. So just want to bring that up, but thanks. I appreciate all that information. So I'm going to share my screen here. Right. So I am on the, and I wanted to mention one of the things about this is that we used to have this on the pilot project. This observation type was there. It comes standard with headlight. After the pilot, I think headlight realized that no one used it, and so they took it off, right? Because if you don't want it clogging up the plus sign there with a bunch of things that nobody's using. But now that we've been using this for a while, I think everybody's kind of gotten used to the observation types we have. I think it's a good time to reintroduce it and talk about kind of some ways that it can be used. And to be honest with you, I think when we first had it, I tried to use it the first few times I did a report, and it didn't make much sense to me. And the one I'm talking about here is the stop, start, work observation, and you can see it has like a little stopwatch, and that is really what it is. It is a stopwatch. And so when you click on it, the first thing you think about, what's the first thing that you think about this observation? I think the first thing that you think about is that you are timing how long the contractor was there, right? Because we usually have, what's the tag we have? The very first one, 01 work hours. So that's what we're thinking about when we look at this observation. And that's not 100% accurate. It can be used for that. It is a way to track time, but that is not really the main focus of this. And I'm gonna switch over to the other project because I made some examples. So looking here, this is a great example, and probably what this type of observation is most meant for. So, and you can see I even dropped in some stuff into the description here out of the blue book, I mean the purple book, sorry. I'm still thinking old school when I was in the field, right? So 302, I dropped this in, begin mixing operations within 1 hour of placement, complete compaction and finishing operations within 3 hours after initial mixing, right? And so this type of observation is great for timing those sort of things. Now, there are not a lot of those. Base course, lime treatment, that kind of stuff is the main ones, but it's a good way to use it. And so you can see here, I captured a start time on the iPad when you click this, or even on the computer. When you first start this observation, it grabs the time that you have. So the time that's on my computer would be the time that starts here. You can change it. You can type in here whatever you want, say 8:15. and then it will recalculate time. You see when it's got a start time and a stop time, it gives you a duration. That is only on the PC. I believe on the iPad, it does not give you the duration. It shows up on the web, but not the iPad. I might be wrong about that, but I did not see that. And so you can see here, I made some documentation that the contractor begins spreading at 7:30, and within that first hour, that means that they were within spec and that they finished. I had it set for 2 hours and 59 minutes, right? Because it's always close on the CNET. So, but at that point, you could put a tag, meet specification, or something along those lines. It's really good to do a complete observation, right? Put your station numbers in, tag some equipment, tag your line item, tag your contractor. We want to make sure that we're adding those labels and adding the context we need for those observations. Your content on this side and your context on this side. That's very important when you're doing these observations. So I think that this is the main way that we would use it for timing, base course, or something along those lines. What are some other ways we could use it? So I'm thinking this morning, just a quick, and I'm just trying to get you curious about this observation, right? So you'll probably all think of much better things than I've thought of here and much better ways to use it. But say you have a concrete truck that shows up and you want to see how long it took them to dump, right? Or put it into the pump truck. That's what I did here. So you grab your start time when it gets there. It's a quick observation. You hit the plus sign, you hit go on the start time, and then when they stop, you push it again. There's no more looking at your watch and trying to calculate time. It does it for you. So trucks are a good use of it. And then also kind of what we started with, right? Tracking the time that the contractor was there. That is a legitimate use of this. You could start this in the morning, right? And I did it here where you were tracking a particular crew. I feel like that is better than, we're already in spreadsheets doing a work hour observation, right? Nope, I'm sorry, not in spreadsheets, in journal. So we're already capturing that in a narrative. So I would not worry about that so much. This narrative is still needed because it has that mapping tag that goes to the work hours place in Site Manager. So we're still going to do the narrative for now. Now, when we get to headlight only, this is what I was talking about earlier, kind of thinking outside the box, like if Site Manager did not exist, will this observation type work? We could probably make that work, right? To track the time. And it might even be better to track individual crews. Like if you have 3 crews, you would have 3 observations of what time they were there instead of one observation that we have now, the journal that says, they were there from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. You track an individual might be better because it's just more granular. But anyway, the main point of all this is that we want you to know that there's a new observation type. And so, make sure the inspectors know about this, try to find different uses for it. And if you find one, send it to us. We'd like to know. And that's all I have on it. So I don't want to take too much of your time with showing you that one thing, but I thought it was great that Headlight was able to turn that back on for us and give us another option. Any questions?
Definitely one good use for it is if there's any intermittent lane closures as well.
Oh, that's a great one. Yes. Great one, Kevin. Thanks.
Thank both of you gentlemen for discussing that, as well as Kevin Barbier and Les for doing our demonstration segment on today. We really appreciate that. Just want to go over a few things in regards to some things that we have upcoming. We do have the Q&A session that we mentioned earlier. That's going to be on next Tuesday. Make sure you guys come with your questions, as Les stated. Bring more than just headlight questions, right? If there's any e-construction, we will have e-construction, the e-construction team on that call. So if you have anything in your workflow that you want to ask or inquisitive in regards to, bring those to us, and that way we can try to get those on the books and answer them. As well as if you want to just stop by and give us a little feedback, throw it at us and just let us know. That's not a call that you have to stay on, but if you have a question, we want to make sure that we answer it. And then that way you have a plethora of people who can dive into that one question right then and there and kind of solve for it. So make sure that you try to attend. That call is not a long call, but like I said, you can drop in and drop out as needed. Lastly, we have the micro learning session, which is at the end, the last Thursday of the month. And we'll be in that session. We'll be going over bulk labeling for this month. I know this is something that has come up with just our little tour in District 62 in regards to, you know, hey, Phil, sometimes we have many processes that we're doing. Sometimes we're on one end of the job and then we have to go to the other. How do we quickly label everything? Or is there a way to quickly label everything? So want to make sure that we give you guys that information and we'll have that in our micro learning session. Outside of that, I think Les did give everyone that was on this call homework. So we do know who all was on here. But really, I think the biggest part about that homework was provide your feedback. I can't stress it enough, right? Give us what you guys need. A lot of times it takes for us to be in person with you or right at your office for you to say, hey, I've been having this burning question, or I've been having this issue that I want to address. But we want to make sure that you guys understand that you have a lot of avenues to be able to provide that to us. One of those avenues is you can go ahead directly to eConstruction and shoot them an email when those thoughts come up, where they can be able to solve for it. You also have the headlight support team that can kind of solve some of those things by just dropping us an email and putting it on our list, so that way we can kind of take that information and dive to it. A prime example would be right before I got on this call, Kevin had an issue. Kevin Adams had an issue. He sent it over. We are right now, I was going to work on it, but somebody else from my team has already started the process to kind of solve that issue for Kevin. All right. So we have the people, we have the right amount of knowledge to be able to solve for those things. Throw them at us. All right. There's that old saying, closed mouths don't get fed. And we want to make sure that we feed you guys the right tools and things that you need in order for you to do your job efficiently in a much better manner, to whereas you guys feel comfortable doing the things that you need to do. Doing more with less is the focus, right? So throw that feedback to us so we can kind of dive in. So now I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to eConstruction. If they have anything that they want to give to us, any updates that they want to pass to you guys. Most of these updates are in the newsletter, but it doesn't hurt for us to reiterate those. So Les, eConstruction, do you guys have anything for them?
I want to reiterate what you just said, Philip. That is a good idea. I know when you get on a webinar with 40 people, you probably don't want to bring up your questions. Send it to us, in an email prior to, or whenever you think about it, and we'll put something together and demonstrate it on the webinar for everybody. So I understand how that is. You might not want to get on here and talk. That's fine. Send us those ideas or problems that you're having, and we'll try to address them. That's pretty much all I have. I appreciate everybody coming and joining in for us. Our main goal here is just to kind of share the knowledge out, and not just our knowledge. Like I said before, there are a lot of DOT folks on here that have been around for a long time and have the department knowledge that you might need. And so sharing that peer-to-peer, this is a good place for that. So appreciate Kevin for hopping on today and giving Phil kind of a break, and me just a little short one to do today. I appreciate that.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Do we have, hey, Les, is Patrick on? I know we did have some visits from like Matt Jones or anything like that. Did they have any parting words before we head on out?
I don't see anybody else on here. Just kind of glanced through. I guess Matt Jones had to hop off. So
okay. All right. Well, I want to always reserve the floor for them just in case they want to say anything to the whole state. But thank you, guys. I appreciate everybody for jumping on. As always, your time is valuable. And for you guys to be able to join us is always a privilege on our end, and we thank you for it. So go ahead, enjoy the rest of your day, enjoy the rest of your week. Thank you, guys, and have a nice one.